Ethic Soldier here, and I'm back to talk about Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon, Season 1, Episode 2, and my thoughts on this episode. I think it's an okay episode, not as good as last week's episode, but still a good episode. I love the characters. Lord Corlys, he's definitely one up there. He's, again, I know some people got a problem with the race swap. I really don't care. The guy is a great actor, and it pretty much shows in this episode. The entire cast is fantastic, but my favourite, and I think what's pretty much becoming pretty apparent in this show, Matt Smith, this is his show. Daemon Targaryen is just, you have to put him in every episode, because when he's on the screen, you're interested, he's fun to watch, and all the credit to Matt Smith, because again, he has had a rough couple of years with the stuff that he's been doing. And this show, it gives him so much more of a chance in Hollywood. It may open a lot more opportunities for him, and I'm fucking happy for him because he deserves it. And the fact that he actually cares about the role, he cares about the fans, you don't really get a lot of that these days. So, all the credit to Matt Smith. He is the best character in this show. The episode was fine, a bit slow at some points, I have to say, but overall story, I thought was okay. I like the dragon designs because they're different, not like we're just copying Daenerys' dragons, it's just photocopying them all to be the same. I love the diversity in the dragons, I love that they look different, I love that they sound different too. I think that's also great. And massively improve on, the dragons from Game of Thrones. That's my opinion. But other than that, I didn't really pick any problems out. Yes, there's a little bit of woke, but I think the problem is, and I'm going to say this, the people writing this, the people directing this, the people involved in this, yes, they are fucking idiots when it comes to this woke shit. They're going to say stupid things because they want to, they want to be seen as these social justice assholes. Fine. But it doesn't really come out of the show. Because they keep trying to point to these scenes and say they're tied to this, they're tied to that. But it's obvious they're not. And it's obvious that the woke stuff they put in this is so small because, again, they don't want to piss off the fans. They've already done that in Game of Thrones. They can't risk it with this show. And the new people in charge of HBO, they're not going to stand for that crap either. So I think the House of Dragon might actually be the first show where wokeness will not overtake the story. And I think that's great. But yeah, strong episode. Small problems in certain areas, but other than that, I think I'll give it another 7 out of 10. It's a good episode. I could rewatch it. And yeah, I'm actually pretty surprised. I mean, I was going into this thinking, oh, it's just going to be about going after the patriarchy or, saying men are bad. But they kind of haven't done that. And the House of Dragon story, it kind of shows how, and this is pretty much a spoiler, so it kind of does show how women being in charge is a massive problem in certain places. I'm not saying that's true, I'm just saying in the story of House of Dragon, you do see that women are not just a fucking cure to things. They do bring problems too. They are a risk to put in charge because they kind of destroy things. I mean, again, the whole reason for the Targaryen civil war is because of 2 women. That is the whole reason for it. The whole reason the House Targaryen was literally annihilated was because of one woman getting pissed at another woman. That's just facts. Sorry if that pisses people off. Anyway, let's get into the spoiler section of this review. If you don't want to hear spoilers, leave in 3, 2, 1. So the episode starts off with the new intro, the new opening credits, and I think the opening credits are okay. I like the brickwork. I love it's like we're going through streets with blood. I like that. The thing I don't like about it, it's just a Game of Thrones song. The House of Dragon should have its own theme tune. It shouldn't just be Game of Thrones. I know they want to, make sure people understand it's connected to Game of Thrones. I know they want to give you that nostalgia, but I kind of think House Dragon needs its own theme song. I don't think you should just take that from Game of Thrones. Maybe we'll get that in the next season. I don't know, but anyway, and I think the intro is fine. It is fine. So we start off on a beach where there are people being fed to crabs. So this is pretty much the crab feeder. Pretty much we're just seeing what he does to sailors he catches. The next scene is a small council meeting where Lord Corlys walks in and pretty much demands that something is done about these pirates. And Otto Hightower has to remind him to calm down because you're speaking in front of the king, and that they'll deal with this in their own time, and will pay you for your lost ships, and will pay the crews of the family for their loss. And Hightower is pretty much trying to calm him down, and the king tells him, listen, we're going to talk to the free cities, and we're going to try to get them to stop supporting the pirates. But Corlys is pretty much like, why are we wasting time? Let's just send a force to deal with the crab feeder. Let's just kill the pirates, take Stepstone, and deny them, a safe port. But the king tells Corlys, we're not going to do that because that could start a war, and we don't want to start a war with the free cities. And I kind of understand why he's doing this, because he's the king. He's taken over a king that had no war for 50 years. He doesn't want to throw people into a war that doesn't need to happen, because a lot of people are going to die in a war, and he doesn't want to see that happen. But Corlys keeps reminding him, listen, you look weak. If we keep looking weak, they may actually start to attack us openly. They may start to join in with the pirates. We have to deal with these people now. But the king tells him he doesn't want to start a war, and they'll talk to the free cities in time. But then Rhaenyra offers an opinion which the king kind of gets a bit annoyed about. She tells him that they could use dragon riders to deal with the pirates, but he says no to that. And Otto Hightower says that she should be in charge of the hiring of a new Kingsguard, because the meeting before Corlys came in was about replacing a Kingsguard because one of the other Kingsguard had died of old age. So someone needs to take that guy's place. So Otto Hightower says, the king, let's give this to Rhaenyra, and she can then pick the new knight who's going to join the household guard. The King's Guard. So Rhaenyra goes, looks at all the knights. She's with Sir, what's his name? Westerling, and he, introduces some of the knights, and Rhaenyra just asks the question, oh shit. Yeah, sorry about that. Rhaenyra asks a question, have any of these knights actually seen combat? Because they're all pretty much from jousting, or they've just captured a few criminals. So she wants somebody who's actually been in a battle, actually been in a real fight. So Westerlings introduces Sir Christian, the guy from the attorney from the first episode, the one who knocked off Daemon. So she pretty much offers him the job. Otto Hightower gets a bit annoyed about this because, the other houses down there are a lot more important than his house. Like houses who have fleets or houses have money. And, appointing a new King's Guard isn't just about protecting the king. It's also about ensuring house's loyalty to the throne. It's kind of like, we do this for you, you do this for us. It's kind of like a back and forth kind of thing. But Rhaenyra has to remind them she wants the best protection for her father, and it should be somebody who's actually seen in combat, which actually is very smart. Because yes, you could get somebody who has money, you get somebody who has ships, but if they're useless in a fight, the king could get killed, and that's what she wants to prevent. And I thought it was a great scene with Rhaenyra, showing actually she's smart and calculated at the same time. The next scene is King Varys talking to Alicent Hightower in his room with a model of Old Valyria, and they're talking about the history of Old Valyria. And you can pretty much understand what this whole thing's about. Alicent is trying to get close to him so that she will become his wife one day, and the king just wants somebody to talk to because he lost his wife and he can't talk to his daughter because he thinks his daughter blames him for her death. I mean, it is his fault, but it was a hard choice. Your son or your wife, and he picked his son. Some people may think that was wrong, but I know it's a difficult choice. Anyway, so they're talking about old Valyria. Alicent asks, "Do you think Westeros will be the next Valyria?" He says no because they had a massive ship and dragons the sizes, massive sized dragons, but they can only try. And then the king asks Alicent about his daughter. Has she told her things? Does she hate him? Alicent tries to calm down and say, "No, my king, it's fine. Your daughter's fine. Maybe if you open up to her, she'll open up back as well." So I think that's a good scene between them. And the next scene is Alicent and Rhaenyra going into the Sept with all these candles that I thought were CGI at first, but no, they're all real candles. So props to Game of Thrones, props to House of Dragon for not wasting money on CGI that wasn't needed. So props to them again. So Alicent comes here to pray for her mother, and she tries to get Rhaenyra to do the same thing to make her feel better about the loss of her mother, because she's still not, over it. Oh, I should have said this at the beginning. We do have like a 6-month time jump, and I think I'm okay with the time jumps, but they're going to get bigger as the series goes forward, because we all know that the actress playing Rhaenyra is going to be replaced by an older woman, because that's how the story works. So it is going to be sad to see this actress leave, because she's a good actress. I mean, there's no problem with her. Anyway, so Alicent gets Rhaenyra to pray, and I think that makes her feel better. She opens up a little bit more to Alicent, and so Alicent can try to use this information from Rhaenyra to try to get closer to the king. At least that's what I think she's trying to do. The next scene is the king talking to Corlys and his wife Rhaenys, and Corlys wants to apologise for how he acted at a small council meeting, but he also wants to discuss the king about joining their houses, and making the Targaryens and the Valyrian houses strong together. And the king understands why he's doing this. The king knows he has to take a new wife, but he doesn't think it's right to join both of these houses. He also knows that Corlys is only doing this so he can get his family to power, because his wife didn't get there. So I think the king's smart enough to know what this is, and it's also kind of weird to see Corlys offer his 12-year-old daughter to a 40 or 50-year-old man. That is kind of creepy, but that's how it works in the Middle Ages. I mean, if you look at like the royal family, we had boys having to marry like old women, and fucking kids young as 6 marrying 50-year-olds. I mean, it's a fucked up system, but that's what it was back in those days. So yes, it's weird to watch, but you do understand it is that time. So, just in case some people kind of think it's trying to be like perverts or he's a pedo. No, it's an alliance. It's kind of what they did in those days. I'm not saying it's right, it's just how they did things. So the king agrees to think about this and discuss with the small council. Well, discuss later with people about should he do this. Next scene is King Varys talking with Rhaenyra about, is she okay? But there is like sort of a gap between them. They kind of can't really get over the fact the mum is gone. The king is still in mourning for his wife, but he knows that he has to take a wife. He knows that the kingdom expects that, but he still feels like he has to talk through this with his daughter, because he doesn't want his daughter to think he's replacing her mother. And she's pretty much okay with it. She understands why he has to do this, but you can see in her face that she's not happy about it. And there is also the concern about her being replaced by a male heir if he remarries, which is what she's... I don't think it's what she's most concerned about, but it's definitely up there in concern for her. Next scene is the king with the High Maester and Otto Hightower, and the king is pretty much in trouble right now, and he is dying because he's getting cuts from the chair. They're not healing right. They're not healing fast, so they have to try to do certain things to try to keep him alive. One is also trying to save his finger, which is to get maggots to eat away the dead flesh. And then King Varys discusses with Otto Hightower about the marriage proposal that Corlys has asked for. Otto Hightower doesn't want this to happen, but he can't come out and say that, because if he does, then he knows that he's put his daughter up to try to get him to marry her. So in this scene, which I think is a great scene, is trying to see Otto Hightower navigate the king away from a marriage. The problem for Hightower is, well, Otto Hightower is, the Grand Maester says it's a good match and it's a good deal. House Valyria is a strong house, and it would make the Targaryen house stronger still, even stronger at some points. But you get Hightower, who then does a smart thing, and he tries to use emotion to try to get the king not to marry this 12-year-old. And he says, I lost my wife and I still can't replace her for these so many years. And that kind of does work with the king, and he kind of does start to doubt a marriage between the two houses, because he doesn't want to replace his wife. So I thought it was a great scene. It shows Hightower is smart, he's calculated, and he knows when he can try to say no to something, and when he has to try to navigate saying no to something, which I think is good. The next scene is a really creepy scene. I mean, I know nothing happens, but it is kind of creepy. It's the king walking with a 12-year-old discussing joining their houses together, and you see Corlys watching over them both. And I mean, it's a child. And the king knows it's a child, and he's just uncomfortable with it. And you can see that he doesn't want to do this, but he does see the potential in a marriage between them. But again, it's still very uncomfortable to watch at some points. Again, I know it's a time period, but you know, it's kind of fucked up. And the little girl then says, we should join our houses together to strengthen the kingdom. And the king then, realises your father's pretty much told you what to say in this meeting. And that pretty much does put him off a lot more, because he knows Corlys is desperately trying to get his house into more of a power place. And that is annoying him, because he thinks Corlys is trying to take a lot from him. He's trying to take power from it at some points, and that's just angering him more, which I kind of think is kind of weird for Corlys' character, because I don't think he's that dumb. But I don't know, it just seemed like, why would you tell your daughter to say those exact words, because you just know it's going to piss the king off. It was just weird. We then get a scene between Rhaenys and Rhaenyra, and Rhaenys tries to warn Rhaenyra about the fact the kingdom's not ready for a woman to lead them, the fact that men will always do what they have to make sure a woman is never in charge, even to the point of burning down the kingdom. Now, I think a lot of people are going to say this is like her trying to stand up to the whole, oppression system, standing up to the patriarchy. I know a lot of people are going to say that. I have a different view of this. I think this is Rhaenys trying to sow division between the king and his daughter. Trying to get her to be angry at the king for playing into the hands of the men and not standing up for his daughter. And basically she's just trying to push Rhaenyra away from her father, so they're not strong together. And that's the point. Rhaenys doesn't give a shit about her. She just wants to get to the throne in any way, at least for her family to get to the throne. Which is, again, you can kind of respect that, but people are going to say this is her trying to tell her about the patriarchy, how she should take the patriarchy down. It's like, maybe if she was just some fucking maid telling Rhaenyra this, but not the fucking woman who was really close to becoming queen. I mean, come on, it's obviously a tactic for her to try to sow division in the Targaryen's household. So, all the feminists saying this is a massive win for you, it's not. we didn't get another scene between Alicent and the king, and she brings the king a present. It's because in the last scene he accidentally broke a model of one of the dragons that he had for the city he built, and she's got it fixed. And then the king talks to her about, marriage and should he do it, and it's kind of weird to see this because she's also there to try to get a marriage proposal from him, and he also asks about his daughter again. But then Otto Hightower enters the room and tells the king that he needs to come to an emergency small council meeting because something has happened. Next scene is them at the small council meeting where the king's told that a dragon's egg has been stolen by Daemon. Daemon has nicked a dragon's egg because he's getting married to the woman from the first episode, and they want to have a child together, or at least he says they have a child together. And in Targaryen tradition, you can have two wives, and when you have a child, you're supposed to put a dragon's egg in the crib with the child, for some reason. So he has taken a dragon's egg to do that, but it's not just any dragon's egg. It's a dragon's egg for King Varys' last son. So that angers the king, and he sends a force to go to Dragonstone to deal with Daemon, and he wants to lead it himself. But Otto Hightower says you can't do that because it's too much of a risk, and so he says he'll lead the force to deal with Daemon. So Otto Hightower gets ready in his armour. He then talks to his daughter. He notices that his daughter is self-harming herself, by scratching her nails, or at least cutting her nails at the top of them or at the bottom of them. And he asks, why do you destroy yourself? But I think it's kind of stress with her, how she deals with it. And the fact that he's forcing her to try to marry an older man, it is kind of getting to her. So you can kind of see, yeah, he's caring, but the reason she's doing this is his fault, technically. Anyway, so so next scene is Otto Hightower getting to Dragonstone with his force. They head up the stairways that you saw in season 7 when Daenerys was at Dragonstone. They're on those same stairs, and you see Daemon is there with the egg and his army of gold cloaks, because the gold cloaks stayed loyal to him and helped him take over Dragonstone. So he has 2,000 men loyal to him. Otto Hightower demands that Daemon give back the dragon's egg. Daemon says it's his right as Targaryen to have an egg at his son's side, or at least in his son's or daughter's crib. And Otto Hightower keeps reminding Daemon, listen, you're not the future king, and your wife is a whore, and if you want to have sex with her, that's fine, but she'll never be seen as a true queen or a true anything because she's a whore. And Daemon doesn't care about this, but you have to remember, Daemon's not doing this because he wants to start a war. He's doing this because he wants his brother's attention. He wants his brother to stop treating him like a child, stop pushing him away. He wants to be back in King's Landing, and he wants to be the hand of the king. That normally happens in Targaryen families. A Targaryen is normally the hand of the king. So Daemon is not really happy about this. So he's acting out in the dumbest way possible, but that's what he's doing. Otto Hightower tries to get the gold cloaks to turn on Daemon by saying, are you really going to go against your king? Are you really going to follow Daemon to the grave? They then, Otto's men pull their swords out, ready to fight, But then Daemon's dragon comes in, and again, I love the design of this dragon. It's skinny, it's weird, it sounds great. Great dragon. I should really know the name. Oh, it's going to take a long time. Anyway, yes, the dragon comes up, and Otto Hightower realises they're pretty much fucked if they try to attack Daemon, because he has a dragon and they don't. But then Rhaenyra arrives on her dragon, and she talks to her uncle and tries to get him to, you know, hand over the egg without any bloodshed. This is not right what you're doing. The person you should be angry at is me. I'm now the heir to the throne. So if you want to kill anybody, it should be me. And Daemon's like, listen, you're not of age yet. I'm not doing this to fucking destroy the family. I'm just, you know, I'm just trying to do the right thing by my wife, or by my soon-to-be wife. And so he gives back the egg to Rhaenyra. She gives the egg to the maesters to look after. And what she's done in this scene is pretty much diffuse the situation and pretty much calm Daemon down and made sure nobody's died. So she heads back to King's Landing on a dragon. We get a scene between Daemon and his girlfriend, because it's not his wife yet, and she tells him about how she doesn't want to be scared anymore, and she wasn't there to be his wife, she just wants to be protected. So there was that little scene between them. I'm not really that bothered about that scene. So Rhaenyra gets back to King's Landing. The king demands to see her because he didn't want her to go there because she's heir to the throne, and if she dies, that's his house pretty much in danger, or at least his bloodline in danger, because the House Targaryen is massive at this point, but his personal bloodline, she's the only one there left. So anyway, so he doesn't want her to die, he doesn't want to get hurt, he cares about her. They then both have a heart-to-heart about the mother dying, and she's happy that he's moving on, and she's happy that he still cares for her mother, that she's happy that he's sad, that he's emotional that she's gone, and he's happy that she's okay with him marrying a new woman, and that she understands that he's not going to replace her with anybody, and nobody will ever replace her mother, which I thought was a good scene between them. The next scene is a small council meeting where King Viserys announces that he is to remarry. Corlys thinks it's going to be his daughter, but it turns out to be Atia and the Hightowers. So that pisses Corlys off. He gets angry, but he has to remember the king can do what he likes because he's the king, and he has to remember that. And Rhaenyra isn't happy about this because Atia and Rhaenyra are very close, and now she feels betrayed by her, and now you start to see the rift between them, because as I said in my last video, them being friends is pretty good right now, but in the future you're going to see what they turn into, and I'm just saying it's not really good for both, well, for the House Targaryen. So the next scene is Corlys explaining where the House Valeria came from, how he worked hard to build his house, how these pirates are now threatening his house, how the king seems to not be treating his house with the respect that they deserve, and how his house was amongst the poorest in Valyria. So he's talking to Daemon about trying to get him to help with the crab feeder situation. Daemon agrees. Daemon says that he's interested in helping, and when Corlys nearly insults the king, you can see in this scene that Daemon will not have any of that. You will not insult the king in my presence. He is still my brother. He is still my blood. And so Corlys calms down on that and asks Daemon, will you help me deal with the crab feeder? And then the episode ends with us seeing the crab feeder feeding another person to the crabs. And that's it. I think it's a good episode. It's an okay episode. I would love to have seen a bit of fighting. I would have liked to have seen the dragons have a little go at each other, maybe. But that's all going to be in the future. It's a good episode, and yeah, it's a 7 out of 10 for me. And that's the end of my review. If you like this review, give it a like. If you dislike this review, give it a dislike. And if you like my content, do think about subscribing. Entertainment Soldier. Bye.